This is everything that I bought at a recent train show for only $50, and today I'm going to be going through all of it. First of all, I decided to buy one building, which is this. This looks like some sort of old bar or something like that. This was a really cool piece, and they were selling a whole bunch of these buildings off for really cheap, so I decided to get this. In the near future, I would like to rebuild a layout in my room, sort of similar to the old one I had, but in much nicer shape and a lot easier to use, and I'm hoping that this will fit pretty well with the idea that I have. Next up, I actually bought 4 pieces of rolling stock, and these, just like that building, were marked as $5 each. However, since I'm a member of the area that had the show, I got quite a big discount on everything, which is why I got everything here for a total of $50. And first up, it's this Proto 2000 boxcar. There were a whole bunch of Proto 2000 kits, but this one was actually pre-built. It's got metal wheels, and it's got some actual, knuckle couplers. However, these ones are like easy mates, so I'll probably swap them out for Katie's at some point. This car will need some weight added, probably some coupler height work, and just a little bit of general tweaking that I do to every car, but overall, I don't think this was a bad buy for $5. Alright, next up is something I noticed, and I think it might be a little bit of a dud. We have this Omaha Car Shops Union Pacific grain car. I've actually got one of these, however this one's got quite a bit going on. There's a bunch of parts that have fallen off in there that I'm going to need to fix up. And this car feels really light generally, which I'm not a huge fan of, so I'll probably need to add some weight, fix this, fix all the other broken details, and see if I can make this a decent car again, because if I can, it'll be added to my grain train, which I'm trying to replace some of the older cars on. Next up are a pair of Atlas cars, which I grabbed mostly because they have metal wheels, but they also seem like pretty nice cars. This one's in the box upside down, but this is a nickel plate road hopper. This car has some pretty good weight to it. The thing I don't really like about some of these Atlas cars is they use pins instead of actual screws for the trucks. The thing does feel pretty free rolling, so this thing might just need like a coal load, some new screws, and to replace these horn hooks with Katie's, and I think this will be a pretty good car that I can use behind my B&O units. Now, this is the last piece of rolling stock, and I think this one is an absolute steal. I got this one for even cheaper than the advertised price, just like everything in here. And even for the initial $5 it was being advertised as, I think this is a crazy good deal. This is an Atlas Corn Products tank car. I'll get it out of here. This car seems like it's pretty much new. I haven't actually tried to take this thing out yet. Perfect, the car's out of here, and it's a really nice looking thing. Again, I believe the only thing I'll have to do to this one is change out the couplers because it's got these sort of like AccuMate style couplers, which I really don't like, and I'll just change out with Katie's. However, this car feels a lot higher quality than the other one. This seems a little bit more modern, so it might actually be something I can run with my more modern units. This is a really nicely weighted car, it's really highly detailed as well, and I really like it, so it'll probably get used on some of my freight contests for quite some time. So I think this was a really good buy for even $5, but for me, a lot cheaper than that. Now, everything else here is just going to be engines, and there is 10 of them, so I'm going to start with the smallest one first, which is this old Lionel Husky switcher. I have always thought that these were really cool, and I regretted not buying one a while ago. This one actually was hidden in the dollar bin, so I got this one even cheaper. I don't think I even got any discount on it because it was so cheap. But these things are so cool. I really like how shiny the side frames here are. It's a lot shinier than a lot of the similar Athearn Hustlers. I think it's just a really cool piece. It looks pretty new too, which is kind of cool. So I want to get this thing running, and I want to kind of compare it to my Athearn Hustler at some point in the future. Next up is another Lionel piece, and this one is an old HO scale 462. This is a really unique looking model. It's just odd overall. I think some of this is die-cast. This whole front plate looks really weird here. It looks like some of these drivers have a little bit of rust, but this is just a really unique and odd engine that I couldn't pass up because I think it'll be a fun thing to work on the channel. I really don't own much Lionel HO, but this thing just seemed too cool to pass up, so I decided to give it a try, and hopefully we can get this thing running again because I don't believe it works. Next up, I have a Mantua General 440, and this one is rather nice. It's got a really nice looking wood load here. This engine, I already know for a fact it's missing its drive shaft. I do have an idea of how I want to attempt to restore this thing to see if I can do it without having to buy a replacement drive shaft, so that might be interesting in the future. But overall, this is a really worn out looking old engine, and it would be kind of fun to get this thing running again. And at that point, I'll probably have to decide which of my 440s I want to keep, because at this point, I've got 3 of them that are around this age. I've got 2 of my Mantua ones, and I've got a Bachmann one. Alright, next up we have this. This is a Santa Fe FA. This thing actually is in pretty nice shape. I'm pretty sure this thing runs really well. It looks like it has a really good drive system. It has quite good weight. I don't know exactly what manufacturer this is, and I think it might be Walther's Trainline, but this engine just feels really nice, and I think with some Kadies, this will actually be just a really nice engine to have around. And who knows, maybe it can replace some other Santa Fe unit I've got laying around. On the topic of Santa Fe, there's no shortage of it here. I've got another Santa Fe unit. This one is rather odd. I've seen these around a little bit, but I've never actually seen one in person. This is an AHM FT, at least I believe. These are really weird because of how short their front nose is. The real units were not like this, so I don't know why AHM designed it like this, but it's a really odd and weird locomotive that I thought would be kind of fun to bring to the channel to see if we can fix up and have a little bit of fun with. The last of the Santa Fe is this Mantua Alco C430. At least I believe it might be a C420. I can't remember all that well with these things. And I bought this one for really one main reason. A lot of these Mantua engines have rivets on the bottom, and I've noticed that this one, they were actually drilled out and they were replaced with a screw and a bolt. So I think this one was actually cared for really well. And I want to see if this thing runs, if it's got any major upgrades or what, because this thing looks incredibly nice. It was also only being sold for $5. I don't know anything about the status of this thing, so it'll be fun to see. And if we can't get it working, it'll at least be nice to get in and fully work on it, because someone's done the tricky challenge of making this thing accessible. So I'm really curious to see what this thing will end up doing. Alright, next up we have something that I've kind of wanted to try and find for quite some time. We've got this Amtrak, I believe P40. I've got a few Amtrak Horizon cars that I've needed something to pull, and I think for now this can do the task pretty well around my house. This is not the highest end engine, however, for the price it was originally going for, which was $5, just like basically everything minus two things in this whole lot. So I think this is a really nice piece. I'm not sure if this one works yet again, but if it doesn't, it'll be a fun project to get going, and we can put some new Kadies and whatnot on this thing. Next up, we've got another kind of odd locomotive. We've got this, which is a Freccesi 280. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. You can see the logo right on the bottom. And this engine is rather weird. I assume that these were actually all engine drive. However, they're tender drive, and the tender doesn't pivot, but the tender wheelbase seems short enough and perfectly fine, so even on some really tight curves, this tender actually works perfectly fine. It's a really weird design, and I haven't really seen many tender drive engines other than the weird Pemco ones, some Triang stuff, and the regular general Tyco ones. So I would like to see if we can get this thing running again, because I think it's going to have a really weird drive system that would be fun to work on. Alright, next up we've got an engine in an Athearn Blue Box, and it is an Athearn Blue Box. This is a chassis system U-boat. I've always wanted to get a chassis system engine. I'd like to upgrade at some point in the future, but I think for now this will be really cool. I actually have 3 cats, which is why I like the railroad so much. Somehow I don't own much more than just a caboose, so I guess this thing will have at least a caboose to pull with it, but it'll be a really fun thing to fix up, see if we can get running again, because I'd love to have one of these working in my collection. Now, I've saved what might be the best for last, and this thing I got again at an incredible deal, which is this. This is a Proto 2000 BL2, and despite the price tag right there, I got an even better deal on it, and I believe I only paid $15 for this one, so this was a big cost of the entire haul of this. So this thing, I will take it out of here. This is definitely a used engine. I do not intend on keeping this box, however, there are a few things I would like to do to it. I believe this front end right here, it's going to need a little bit of attention, but this is a Western Maryland Proto 2000 BL2. All the detailing on this thing looks to be in almost perfect brand new shape, which is really nice. Most of these seem really rough, so I'm happy to get one for quite cheap that looks good. I do know for a fact that this thing has some cracked gears, so I'm going to have to order it some new ones, and I think I'm also going to be able to order it up a DCC decoder. So I want to make this thing a DCC locomotive, which with the condition it's in, I think is going to be rather deserved. So now, let me clean up my mess, and we will go test out all 10 of these engines. Alright, it's time to test out every single engine, and I'm going to start with the 440. I'll give it quite a bit of power. And this one does not seem to be doing anything. Next up, we've got the little neat Lionel switcher. And we also do not seem to be getting anything out of this one. Next up is the Chessie U-boat. And this one seems to run, however it seems to have a little bit of a gearbox problem. I'm gonna guess, just from the sounds of that one of these trucks is not connected somehow, or it's stuck or something like that. So that might just be a simple fix. We'll try the other way. And it seems like we've got the same issue. So that seems like a little bit of a problem, but it should be a relatively easy fix, especially for an Athearn Blue Box. Next up, we've got this odd tender drive locomotive. That seems like it's doing something. It's not much, but it is certainly moving. I was sure this thing wasn't going to work. Maybe this one will just need a little bit of wheel cleaning and some fresh oil. Let's try it again forwards. Yeah, this thing seems to be breaking in, but I think it'll be much better with some fresh work in a future video. All right, next up we have the C420, at least I believe it is, and I'll give this thing some power. I'm really excited to see what this one will do. And it looks like we've got nothing out of the motor. Give it a wiggle, still nothing. Let's try the other direction. I don't know if you can see that, but this thing appears to have directional lighting, which is really neat. So now I really want to see what's inside this thing. So I can't wait to work on this in another video. Alright, next up we have the Lionel 462. This one's a really weird locomotive, so I'll give this one some power. Got a headlight. Let's see if I can make it... That sounded like something. Seems like this thing does want to run. There might be something holding it up, because if I don't give it any pressure or anything like that, the light just stays on. But if I touch it, give it a little push, it seems to move, so it might be getting caught up on something. So that'll be a fun one to work out in the future. Next up, we have this odd AHM FT. And that one springs right to life. It might just need a little bit of fresh oil, but that one's definitely working perfectly fine. Next up, we've got the Amtrak Genesis unit. And while it's very, very slow, it did want to go backwards. How about forwards? It does seem to work, although it might need a wheel cleaning and a lot of fresh oil. Next up, we have this FA. It's a little bit squeaky. However, that thing springs to life and it's pretty quiet. And finally, we have the BL2, which I'm expecting to have cracked gears. The directional lighting on this thing seems to work, but it's very faint. And I don't know if you can hear it, but it definitely has some cracked gears, so I'll order up some new ones for it. So I think this whole lot will make for some pretty good future projects and videos. So I will see you all next time.